Okay. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Carol?
Nothing I'm aware of.
Okay, and we just have the four of us this evening. So, 6:15, we can start out with Fitzpatrick at 43 Collier Road.
Want to accept the agenda first?
Sure. Motion to
Make a
accept.
motion to accept the agenda as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then we're gonna close the doors.
Thank you. That woke us up.
Is that officially here, or you want to give us some?
What do we have for
I'd
Paul?
prefer to put it over there, but this is the thing with Collier. I don't think that we have any new documentation that was received to discuss, honestly.
Well, we did submit a revised plan, but all I wanted to do tonight was to update you on what we've done, because Amy sent the information out to Merrill earlier this week, and we have a question about what they're looking at, because I'm not clear on that.
If there's something that could help
It's
move it along, but we don't want to, we can't be discussing information that we don't have.
No, I just want to point out what we did, because we also finished the review from Jim O'Connell.
But again, that was submitted last week, midweek after the deadline. So we haven't had a chance to review it yet.
And
The only peer review we received.
I know you guys are the same crowd, but just for the record, Paul,
My
Ken,
name is Paul Maravito.
Steve.
Russ Engineering Company representing the applicant, Ken Fitzpatrick, who's seated at the center of the table here. Since the last meeting, we did respond to the comments from Jim O'Connell. He sent a letter in last week, which confirmed what he and I talked about at the end of December. He had us regrade the plan so the contours under the house stayed essentially the same. He did agree to put fill in this area here where these two stairways are. Everything in this area is essentially the same. We still have the fill from the lawn area in the front, and the only other fill is from the driveway. The Brad Holmes submitted a planning plan which pretty much follows the green area. Other than that, we haven't, and we also put on here the fill quantities for Merrill. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Merrill's looking at is the fill, the type of fill, which is gravel and loam. I don't know what else they're looking at. I don't know what their scope of work was.
They will be hopefully rendering an opinion about the flow, impact of flow onto abutting properties from the project.
Okay, that's fine. That's the grading.
So we're waiting for that
Right.
report,
I would
Paul.
expect to get comments from them in the next week and then ask you to continue it for 2 weeks.
Okay, so Amy, is there anything
No, thanks for the update,
to
yeah.
add to this?
Okay.
Anybody have any quick questions regarding that?
so we need to continue it to the 5th, to the next meeting?
What would be the, so I hope everybody in the audience understands, this is, really, we're waiting on the consultant reports and things to.
So did the consultant get it on, I was copied in on an email on January 8th, 2 weeks ago, that we were going to release it to Merrill then. Did they get it then, or they did not receive it?
They received it, actually, I think he picked it up today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
We were waiting for the final report from Jim O'Connell to confirm what Paul had represented to us. And we did receive that, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday last week.
Okay. So we, as Paul had said, we just made the changes based on the dialogue to keep it basically the same underneath the home, underneath the new structure. and submitted a new planting design, which should have been received.
Do we have that?
We have that too. I think that came in Thursday afternoon or Friday, I'm not sure.
Okay.
We actually haven't processed any of that information yet.
All right. So we'll get through all that, and then hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have everybody's input together.
The next meeting's the 5th. What's the meeting after that? Just 'cause I-
Wednesday, the 21st
Sorry.
of President's Day weekend, or week. Sorry.
Be here, there's a lot to be done, I think we should kick it to the 21st too.
Is that, what day? That's a Monday? Which
That's
is
Wednesday,
actually
the 21st.
Wednesday
A Wednesday after President's Day, is that?
Correct.
Is that,
is the 19th, yep.
okay.
It's also Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesdays.
Is it?
21st?
Wednesday's the 14th.
14th. You've been a week late all these years. On the gifts. All right. I probably, just because I can't get out of the 5th, I've got to be traveling for business, so I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we'll say the 21st Wednesday, and if I'm not available then either, I'll let these two gentlemen take care of representing.
That should give the engineer adequate time to perform his review.
Okay. Yeah, that's my
And for us
fear,
to
is that
process it.
we come back the 5th and we still don't have the adequate time.
20,
I know, it's true,
6:25.
and the weeks, you know, we're firm on the 1 week ahead for new information, and it just, the days just seem to.
So I'm sorry, do we want to continue it to the 5th, or do we?
21st.
21st.
So I'll make a motion to continue Fitzpatrick, 43 Collier Road, to February 21st at 6:25 PM.
Second.
Great.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Great.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
It's good too, because
Jacob Hatch condo, Joseph Scanzillo, 10 Driftway, parking.
I'm fired. My pen died. You have to take over.
Thanks, Bob.
Better be using a pencil in that book. What?
The same issue, don't we?
Yeah. Just, Amy, what's your, I know that you had some concerns about where we go with this.
Well, on this one, I think it's similar as Collier Road. We did get new information last week to add to the file, and kind of some of what we had asked for was provided, but have not processed, or I don't think you guys have really reviewed the information either, so I'm not so sure there's much to discuss. It has been sent out, proposal for the stormwater review, so, I
Okay,
mean, there's action, but I don't think there's much to discuss.
okay. All right. Did you catch that?
I did.
Okay.
Since the last meeting, we did have a site walk with Amy, and we walked her around the site. This is the stormwater basin for the existing project. There's also a play area here, which is up against these wetlands. We also looked at putting some additional parking here, which the owner feels that that's not a viable alternative for a number of reasons. This is the original area, which hasn't changed. What I've added to the plan is the amount of disturbance in the buffer zone, which is 2,800 square feet. Is in addition, between the wall and the silt sock, there'd be a temporary disturbance of 1,700 square feet. The stormwater system that was in the notice of intent is still the same. We're gonna make this pervious pavement. There's 2 catch basins here. The water from here will not go into these basins, which go into the existing storm drain system. The notice of intent identifies the performance standards for, under the BMPs for this area you see in green, which is the area of expansion of the paved area, which, and all of that will be contained by a proposed reinforced concrete wall, which the owner would have designed by a professional structural engineer before he seeks the building permit. And the cross-section shows there'd be a total of approximately 900 cubic yards of gravel that would go under the pavement. That's in addition to all the stone for the previous pavement drain system. The gravel would be compacted in 12-inch layers. And the area between the wall and the disturbance, which is the front side, Brad Holmes did a planning plan showing a plan set he would propose to put around the perimeter of the work area, which is in this area here. This is the property line, and this is Route 3A out here. So that's where we stand.
Okay.
So I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Brad did reflag these wetlands. He sent a memo on, he flagged them in 2015 when he and Pat first walked the area, then he flagged them again at the end of December, and he indicated to me that the flags he put on haven't changed from 2015. This wetland line, which we described at the very first meeting, this line was taken from the original site plan that was approved by the Planning Board and Conservation, I think in 2007 or 8.
No, 2002.
2002? Okay.
Okay.
You know, this is the isolated wetland in orange with the two buffer zones, 50 and 100, and the blue represents the BVW, which is off-site.
So the wetland lines, you're gonna go out, and you just haven't had a chance to survey the flags in and put them on the plan? Is that, I know we've asked for that a couple of times.
We haven't surveyed any new flags in Bradford out there.
So that would be an example of something that's still missing, that I think that they're in the process of getting that information on the plan.
Why would that be necessary if Brad says that the wetlands flagging is the same as it was at its original state?
Because I think he's basing it off a plan that's almost 19 years old. So we need to rectify to make sure that where he tied his locations, they're probably consistent, but that would be normal course for a notice of intent, would be to have the flags. I mean, ideally, I'd like to have the data forms too, but if he wants to qualify his wetland line and then the engineer can survey it on, sounds like we should be able to rely on those distances.
If this were a ANRAD, how long do they typically go for? How long is it for an ANRAD? If we did a
3
wetlands, it's only 3 years.
Yeah,
So this is almost 20.
right.
I mean, I'm not expecting any big change, but it is 20 years.
In my experience, 20 years is a long enough time for wetland characteristics to change with drainage and, from the highway.
Joe, do you know when
We see
they
them
did the
grow.
wetlands delineation 20 years ago, was it primarily vegetation or hydric soils or both? Do you?
It was vegetation, I think, and pretty much the same as it is now, basically.
Because that's another thing that has changed considerably, right, is delineating the wetlands. Years ago, it was almost 100% by vegetation, but a lot of it now is also soils. Sometimes that's actually shown less wetlands. Sometimes it's shown that there's more wetlands, but oftentimes there's actually less, it's a more accurate wetland line.
Yeah. When Brad did his original, not original, when he did it in 2015, and we did it in 2016, he had the original plan and brought it to his office to do whatever analysis he does before he came out. Then he came up, he flagged it, and then he went back to his office and did whatever calculations he did and whatever plotting he did on those plans, or a copy of the plans, and basically came up with the conclusion that the wetland
Everything's the same.
the same.
Okay.
So that's why I asked, why do we need to survey it again and go through that additional expense? If he certifies that it's in the same location that it was before.
Well, so I think that we can follow that the area is the same, but I'm not sure what he flagged in the field is as depicted on the plan. So if the area shifts, then the area of alteration, the calculations are gonna be different, right? So we just wanna get it right. And there's always that's what these applications consist of, is show the flag locations. Wetland on the property, so.
No, that's a good point.
And then, just as another side note comment, which I think is important to bring up again, is the analysis of the project proposal in general with respect to alternatives for keeping the parking outside the buffer, so minimizing alteration altogether. I know that upon review of the planning board file and the conservation plan set from 2000, it shows an area in front of the building with future parking spots, and that is outside the buffer.
Just
So
to
I'm just
clarify.
wondering if this, could be, project be pared down, or at least that a thorough analysis should be provided
Is that
to the commission.
parking that would have been on the left?
Yes, yeah.
The original, that note that she's referring to was prior to planning board approval, and that note was drawn by me, and it was penciled in. There were 4 or 5 gravel stall parking spots in front of the facade of the old building. So if you take the one parking spot out of the equation that you need for egress, for the exterior egress by the old front stairs, then there would possibly remain 4 gravel parking spots. You'd have to tear up the front of the grass and the plantings and stuff, and then park on a diagonal, and then people would have to back out of those spots into the fire lane, which is the singular lane around the front of the building for fire access and emergency vehicle access. Be that as it may, if that was done, it still would only give us a fraction of the parking that we need. We've calculated that we need between 12 and 15 additional parking spots. So we would have to find someplace else on the site, and unless you saw someplace else when you did a site walk with us, which I'm anxious to hear if you know of any, then doing that would be basically a wasted exercise, and it would be in conflict with one of the primary things the planning board wanted, which was to keep the front of the building as it is, and the exterior of the front of the building as it is, because, and they cited a number of times the town reports that called that property the gateway to Scituate, and they wanted a pretty-looking entrance to the town around that area, and didn't want to see cars and trucks parked in front of the building. So I don't think that that sole, in my opinion, the only remaining place to get 3 or 4 parking spots, A, would suit the purpose, or B, would necessarily not be in conflict with the planning board site plan special permit and the planning board's request that we keep the front of the building looking the way it currently does.
And so have you filed with the planning board? I
No.
know that their opinion is that
No.
that they-
To answer your question, we have not filed with the planning board. We do not believe we need to, we do not feel that we need to file with the planning board. If you read the zoning bylaw carefully, we're not changing the use, we're not expanding the footprint of the building, we're not changing from business to commercial, we're not adding any additional square footage, we're not adding an addition, we're not doing any of the things that require us to go to the planning board, in spite of the fact that there's a 5 parking spot blurb in that zoning bylaw. If you read the bylaw carefully, it says, when you are changing the use, or when you're adding square footage to the building, or when you're doing these other things. We're clearly not doing that. In addition to that, correspondence from the planning board indicates, way back in the day, that they knew that if we have an overburden situation, it's incumbent upon us to address the situation from a mitigation perspective. Makes no mention of coming back before the planning board again. So they expect that we are going to try to deal with this parking situation. We need 12 to 15 parking spots, and the only place to get them on site is right there. Unless you saw something in the site walk around.
Well, the approved site plan set, it's not a hand-drawn note, but it shows parking spots on that side of the building. But again, I don't think it's our call about the parking and the parking design. Those are planning board issues, which would be taken up by a separate board. But it is something that we do, which is to see if the project would meet the requirements of Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate bylaws. So one of our requirements would be to have you provide us with an analysis of, different areas to keep the project outside the buffer to minimize any impacts on the interests of the act.
You sent an email to that effect, and I sent you back a response that says that you have the drawings in your office, and if you look at the drawings, the complete site drawing, and you've got the approved drawing in your office, and you say they looked at the entire site. I'm not going to redraw the same drawing that you currently have. We've looked at every other spot. You've looked at every spot on the site, and if we can't come up with one to get 12 to 15 parking spots, and you can't come up with one, then I would suggest that there is none other than what we've got.
Okay, I need a question of clarification. Amy, you brought up a point that you said on the approved site plan, it showed parking in front?
Oh, yes.
Okay, but you said the town didn't want the parking in front, so
That's
I'm a
right.
little confused. You're saying the planning board didn't want it, but you're saying you saw an approved plan that reflected it was there.
Yes.
So then I would have to draw the conclusion that it was approved to have cars there.
It's funny how those things work. The note on the drawing for possible future parking spots was written at the very beginning of the approval process. The approval process for that building took us close to 2 years to get approved. So 1.5 or 2 years before the approval was completed, that note appeared on the drawing just because we're looking for potential spots that might work. We had no idea that we were going to need 12 to 15 parking spaces, but we thought, okay, if we only need a few parking spots, this might be where we come to seek them. As the process of approval went along with the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board and so on, the requirements that were put upon us to not disturb the front of the building became clear. So the note was never taken off the drawing, but in the communications or in the minutes of the meetings and the communications with the planning board, they made it perfectly clear that they want the trim work to stay the same, they want the clapboards to stay the same, they want the front of the building to look the same. It's the gateway to Scituate, that they made a lot of hoopla out of the gateway to Scituate notion. So that's how we got from that situation to where we are now. The other thing to consider is if we did put parking spots there, you still have people backing out into the fire safety lane and traveling around the building. It's definitely not the safest place to do it. I wish there was more space there, but there just simply isn't. We don't have enough depth. We'd have to put the parking on an angle. We'd have to, in all likelihood, remove the vegetation from the front of the building, which would probably put us in violation of our special permit.
So that sounds precisely why it sounds like it's a modification that needs other boards' approval about the traffic flow and design. I mean, I'm not sure how you came up with the analysis for the number of spots that you're proposing.
It's fairly simple. I count the number of cars that park on the grass and on the sprinkler heads and in the fire lane and in the handicap parking spots that don't belong there, and on any busy day, you can count 12 to 15 cars parked, not in parking stalls, but places where they're not supposed to be.
Sounds like we're in a
Sounds
bit of
like
a conundrum here,
Yeah, sounds like
because
bigger issues that are non-conservation related, really,
All right,
but,
so let's get to the part that's ours, and I understand what you're saying, that there are other boards, and we try to work in concert with other boards to make sure that either our purview is met or people come to us. You know, in the case of a building permit application, there's a number of sign-offs that take place so that all the different boards have the opportunity to look at those, whether it's Board of Health if there's a septic issue, conservation, fire department, all those things get signed off on that, and obviously one of them is planning, mostly from a stormwater standpoint, is where that comes from. Where we are addressing the stormwater piece of this, because the application has come before us, but as a courtesy to other departments, we typically reach out. I mean, the town's, it's not a vacuum, that everybody tries to work at getting this right. I personally think we should try to address the conservation pieces, but at the same time, the planning board should be made aware of this, and then they can decide if they have purview or jurisdiction, or they don't. It sounds like you've got a case that says that, that they don't.
And they're very aware of it, and they
Yeah.
have yet to respond to us and tell us what their logic is in the event that.
Sure.
Why do you believe we need to come before the planning board?
Okay.
We haven't gotten an answer from them.
All right, so I think we should move along with the pieces that we're supposed to look at. I mean, Amy's point that, you know, hopefully, it would be nice to be able to look at this plan and say, you know, this is another great spot here. There's not. On the other hand, this building got conditioned knowing full well that there were a lot of wetlands areas, a lot of resource areas right around the building, and everybody did what they could to make it work within those resource areas. Now there's an issue of parking, and I realize this happens. I mean, we used to maintain the Driftway South building, and for years, the parking there was ample. But because of regulation, because of compliance, there's more people in these medical offices than ever, and they're not treating patients. So, you know, this happens. I mean, this is the reality of some of these places, that fortunately or unfortunately, there's more people employed there to make this happen. So, I mean, I get that. We have to look at that as well, and then say, is the applicant working to get to this, to get to a point where the work that they want to do is in compliance with the town. And then, let's just say that this piece looked to be built at the time that they were building the building. Right, so that, back when you were building the building, you said, geez, we need more spaces, we gotta somehow fit these spaces in here.
Yeah.
So, at the time that this was being built, you would have been looking for some relief from the buffer zone.
Right, that's where we would have
Right.
sought it in the first
So,
place.
so at the time that we would be doing that, typically we would look at that and say, well, what are we offering for mitigation to do that?
Yep.
So I guess what I'm looking at is saying, let's, given other people have a chance to take a look at it, given that the drainage is correct from Merrill and that there aren't any other issues, if we're going to condition this, what would we think is appropriate to do that, to be in that buffer area? And we've talked about the plantings and the fact that probably anything planted below that is almost ineffective because it's just gonna get entangled with,
Bucker brush, Paul calls it.
so that's not a great alternative. I'm just wondering if there's something on the site that we can look at and say, geez, this would be a good way to deal with this. And the thought that I had, and I'm just throwing this out there, and it's a long-going battle in that area, is there's still an awful lot of knotweed that grows
Yeah, we, not to
So,
interrupt,
no, no.
we've pretty much beaten up on the knotweed. When Pat was the agent, we came in for, it was an RDA or something, to deal with the knotweed.
Right,
And we went through a 2-year program, and I gave him all the information on it. He said, okay, give it a try. And we have been extremely successful in beating up the knotweed, right down by where the playground area
Right.
is. So what the program we use, it's not cheap.
right.
It's been a fantastic program.
And I'm not saying that that's it, but I'm just saying that if I were to look at this project and say, you know, the whole process of going through this is try to find some kind of ground, sometimes it's just not gonna work. If they said, no, we gotta build right, we gotta fill into the wetland, we'd be looking for replication and all that sort of stuff. But there's a methodology, or there's a means in applying for these things that folks can do if they feel they need to get to that point. So my question would be, what can be done on this site that would better the site for wetlands with this impact to the buffer? And I'm just wondering if that could continue in some way, or something like that.
We
In
would
fact,
have
it might
to-
be beneficial for both. It would make the building look better, and at the same time, you know, give us some benefit for the,
Yeah. I have a suggestion, Frank. The permit, or I don't know if it was a temporary work permit or a RDA or whatever, for our fighting the knotweed, I think it expired last fall or something. So we would have to come back before the board if we wanted to continue that fight. It's been very successful. It's been pretty costly, but very successful. But, I mean, if you guys would consider that as our willingness to keep that battle going for another couple of years, I think we might be able to totally defeat it on that site, which has got a lot of frontage
on the driftway.
on the driftway.
I don't know, Amy, I mean, this is new tonight, as we're talking, I've been looking at the plan, try to find some sort of opportunity to get a positive result from this meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, you know, we're having discussions that could be a little premature.
Right.
But I think, you know, going in the right direction, obviously we want to work with the site owner and, you know, move things along. It's just, you know, we need to make sure that our analysis is thorough and that we're provided by the applicant. Burden of proof is on them to show us that there's no other place to put the parking, you know,
Right.
other people in the town don't have an issue with putting it here or even allowing it. I mean, we're gonna go with that there are no issues, but there's the Water Resource Protection Board, there's the Planning Board, potentially. I mean, I'm just saying that we would need to, you know, maybe get some feedback from them. Perhaps even fire department should weigh in on whether these new spots would be, you know, recommended by them for public safety.
I understand what you're saying, I mean, I'm trying to keep it to our purview. I realize that there's others that may or,
But you can't really move forward with approving this design without knowing that
Well,
others are on board too. I mean, we could, but then if it falls apart,
right,
it's,
then they're back to square one.
right, but if it was, you know, originally permitted and Mr. Scanzillo saying that this was not, it was just on paper but didn't really mean anything, but, you know, if it was, the original intent was to have overflow parking start on the west side of the building, as shown in the site plan, approved site plans, then, you know, maybe they want him to go there first and go here last. I mean, I'm not sure if pervious pavers are allowed in the water resource protection area. I mean, so there's things that's moving along, but we just want to make sure that, you know, before we go down the road of mitigation, that this is definitely the project that we're looking at.
All right, so.
Starting with flags on a plan, getting our areas right would be a basic place to start, for sure.
I could, Mr. Chairman, my name is Russ Anderson, and I'm here representing the unit owners, the Jacob Hatch Condominium Trustee. I think you started to allude to something, how things change over time. And while the building's been open probably 15 years or so. This issue really has magnified in, I'll say, the last 3 or 4 years. My own personal feeling is the way that medical offices are operated these days has changed in that time, and the amount of people in there at any given time has grown tremendously. You've got people in the treatment rooms, then you've got another whole group of people out in the waiting room. There's sick people waiting, healthy people waiting, staffing has increased, so it's really something that's exploded on us in the last 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
And the other thing I will add, and I know as Joe said, and this, I came to this, far later, but I believe in, 2008 or 9, I definitely was at a meeting where I know the town was expressing, someone from the town, Joe can probably know, a strong desire not to do anything else to the front because they love the appearance of the front so much.
And
I don't know the date, I don't know who, but, and Joe probably does, but I can
Well,
verify that I
again,
was at that
it's
meeting.
not our purview, but to your credit, they kept an old, when this building was built, Amy, there was an older, a historic home that was there, and that house was kept and restored and made into part of the office, which is nice, unlike some others that have happened where they just get demolished. So I think they've made some good strides to try to make that work, and they do that credit for that. And they, obviously, anybody that has a building or takes the time to do something like that also wants to look at it aesthetically and say, is this the right place for that? It's a factoring thing. We shouldn't care. We should only care about the wetlands piece, but I'm also a contractor, so I look at those things and say, I think this might work or that might work. And there's some things that seem sensible and it just makes sense to you, or it might make sense to someone else to say, do this, but I think we still have to make sure we do the process to be sure that we get it right.
Right, and if others feel that the parking was not intended to go there, then a letter, just give us the documentation saying that's never intended for parking to be there, and the only place it can go is in this location, then we could move forward. That would be.
I think you're missing the point, though. The point being, even if we did put 4 parking spots there, it would be ineffective to our needs. We need 12 to 15 parking spaces. There's no other place on the site to put them, and that's why we're here with this drawing.
We're not gonna close this tonight.
Nope.
And I think we have the drainage piece out that's gonna have to get done by Merrill anyways. I'm just trying to think.
Actually, we're gonna use Chesia.
Oh, Cheshire, all right. So, we have that. I just don't know. I mean, I'm looking at it and I can't see a good spot for that, but I'm not an engineer either, so maybe there's some other way that they can satisfy that question, that it just doesn't go here or there. This is the spot where it needs to go, if there's some way to do that. So you have that question, and then there's the question of the wetlands line.
Which seems really easy to resolve.
So Brad's flagged it. Would like Paul to locate
Put the
that.
flags on
The
the plan.
flagging.
Yeah.
I just wonder if we wouldn't be better, if we wouldn't achieve a better result by having a conversation, if you could have a conversation with Brad and just say, do you think any of these things have changed? I mean, my concern would be that.
That's not the point though, Frank, because I don't think that they've changed dramatically. I'm just not sure that what he hung in the field is what's shown on the plan. So the only way you're gonna confirm that
Is to have them locate the
just by
flags.
having them locate them. I mean, this time of year, it's a pretty simple survey, I would think.
Okay.
And that way we can have confirmation that the wetland line is as shown on the plan. I mean, because right now we have a narrative that says that the flags, or that what he sees in the field agrees with what was shown on a plan that was 20 years old, but that's different than actually tying the flags and then locating them.
Right, and he's certainly not gonna be finding old flags from 20 years ago, they're long gone.
No, he has new flags, I think.
No, but I'm
Pink.
saying the only way that Brad would truly know that would be that he'd be finding old flags
Right,
in the
right.
field. And if it was 5 years ago, you'd say, well, he could find those flags, probably
Yeah.
remnants of those flags. But after 20 years, it's probably doubtful that,
I don't know what he did when he brought the plan back to his office, how he may or may not have plotted on some other
Right.
device back at his office to conclude that the wetlands is in the same
Yeah.
location. But I figured he's the pro, he knows what he's doing
yeah.
in that department. The other thing, one last thing on that, Frank, is, and members of the board, we have had, because of the parking situation we have, and because the building services a lot of children, there's a large pediatrics office in there, and there's a elderly podiatry office in there, so we have a good quantity of the people who visit the building every day, sometimes as many as 400 or 500 people a day. That's a lot of people. Some of them, when they can't find parking, will park across the street at the brick building. And on a couple of occasions, we've had some scares with mothers and carrying infants and little babies and, screeching brakes on the driftway because of that. So it's a safety issue
Right.
too.
I'm not questioning your need for parking, and obviously you understand our purview, what we're trying to get at.
Yes.
And I think that we could settle these couple of pieces relatively simply, at least the parts of the commission. And I would just encourage you to think about that. If we're concerned as a commission that some of this is now going into the buffer, what's the right mitigation for that? I want to get to that point as well. And so if,
I think we all understand the issue you have. You need more parking, but we have a responsibility to make sure it's done appropriately, and as Amy has said, thoroughly. And I think, I know you want it to move along, I know you want to get it done, but we've got to do it thoroughly.
Oh, I understand, I understand. We're not actually doing any work in the wetlands, it's just we're in the buffer area, which is
Right.
that no man's land between upland and wetlands. So it's not like we're disturbing any wetlands.
Right.
okay. So when will we have a drainage piece back?
We
Or-
do
or
not
a
have,
consultant.
yeah, I've got the information out, I'm waiting for a proposal, but I would say probably a month. I would probably continue to the 21st. I'm thinking that it's gonna be done in a week.
And then hopefully in the meantime, maybe some of these other pieces could get settled.
Is that the 21st of February?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't be here, you want to be here? Can you tell,
Helpful, I am.
what's the next meeting after that?
March 5th.
March 5th.
It's a Monday.
I'm still not going to be around. I'm gone between those dates.
Monday, March 19th is the next one.
Okay?
Is that what you want?
Maybe in the meantime, there's no reason that a bunch of these things couldn't still get hammered out.
If
which-
we can get an itemized listing of what it is that need to be squared away, we're very aggressive in taking care of business.
Okay. All right.
So I'll make a motion to continue Jacob Hatch condo, Scanzillo 10 New Driftway to March 19th at 6:20 PM.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Great. No, it's the 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Frank messed up on
I know.
on
Yeah, yeah.
Valentine's Day, and he doesn't know when St. Patty's Day is, here in Scituate.
We probably end up at the same.
I don't think he's not Irish, Joe.
I know. You're probably like 3 years now.
We can still go out that night.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Sorry for any consternation I may have caused, but thank
We'll
you.
get there.
Thank you.
All right.
Town of
Actually,
Scituate,
it works for me. I
DPW
left-handed
Bailey's
anyway.
Causeway, replace
I
culvert.
was like, who's a lefty?
Amy, do we know when the DPW wants to continue till? There's no date on.
Again, with the reviews that are happening, I think safely 221, keep our fingers crossed if a review would be in. It's not going to be in a week because we don't even have a proposal. We're still shopping it around for the town.
Okay,
So we need to move those?
yeah, so,
Motion for Town of Scituate, DPW Bailey's Causeway, to continue it to February 21st at 6:30 PM.
second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye. And then to continue Town of Scituate, DPW Gilson Road to February 21st at 6:35 PM.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. So now we have Lindbergh at 265 Central Ave, remove and replace. On January 22nd, 2018, to 6:35 PM, the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Susan Lindbergh to remove and replace approximately 24 lineal feet of damaged foundation on property located at 265 Central Ave, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties invited to attend. Good evening.
Evening. Brendan Sullivan with Kevin R. Consulting, here representing the Lindberghs, 265 Central Street. So really, fairly simple. Portion of their foundation with the crawl space underneath was damaged during the storm event. Not the most recent storm event, the storm event in past. So they're looking to just remove and replace a portion of that 24 feet. No building footprint expanded. That's really about it.
I can understand it. I know the house.
Did they come before us last year to raise and rebuild or elevate this?
2 years ago.
A couple years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
2000
That long ago?
To raise and rebuild, and they just, I guess, they didn't have the funds for it, so they didn't move
Yeah.
forward with that
They,
project.
they filed for an elevation grant and they didn't get it.
I get it.
Get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But that order's still alive.
It is?
I believe so, yeah.
Do we condition it? Do we close that hearing and condition that?
We received an order of conditions, yes.
Okay. All right.
So how would we handle that then? We have to close that out before
No,
this, or?
No, I think you can keep it open.
just keep it open.
I mean, because ultimately, we would prefer if this house did go up, you know, based on its location and velocity.
But in the meantime, they've got damage.
Right.
That they
So,
have to fix.
and I think if,
They
we
really
wouldn't be
have to
able
fix
to, I guess what I was wondering is what we did condition and if it was okay to just amend that, but it's really a different filing altogether, so.
This house is on the marsh side, not on the ocean side.
Right.
Yeah. I could ask the clients if they want to close that one out, if there's any intention to raise, you know, because I'm sure you want to, I want them to too, but if they got denied on the grant, they obviously don't have money to do that, so.
Well, it might come back around. It's good for people to have those. They may even want to continue it
Sure.
out as long as possible.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if, say, the house were to sell, new owners come in and have different funding mechanisms, perhaps that would be an advantage
Right.
over permanent.
No, I think they
ban.
should. I think
I
they
think we should leave it.
I think
Assume
not
that
only
then?
should keep it, they ought to take a look and see if they want to extend it out to the max.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, I'll make them aware of that too, to make sure we get the extension out before
Yeah.
it does expire.
Yeah.
so,
yeah.
but in the meantime, they've got to fix their foundation.
Yeah.
What material you be using?
So it's going to be a poured concrete foundation wall.
It's replacing what's there,
Yes.
basically.
Jen?
No.
Lisa?
Nothing.
Anything else, Richard?
Oh, the only other thing, very, very small point, it's Central Avenue, not Central Street.
Right.
But then people get confused with Central Park, which is a totally different part of town.
Amy?
No comment. Looks good.
Okay.
Motion to
Motion?
close? No, yes, close, right.
Yep. A second on that?
Second?
All in favor?
Hi.
That was almost painless, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Almost. Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Martin, 67 Border Street, raise and rebuild. And they've requested a continuance, but we have the thing, so we should open this and then continue it, correct?
Correct.
So I'm gonna read this one. On January 22nd, 2018, at 6:38 PM, I don't get to 6:38, and the Town of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Peter and Monica Martin to raise and rebuild a single-family dwelling on property located at 67 Border Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Okay, and so,
How long do they want it out for?
1 month, February 21st?
Busy night. I make a motion to continue Martin, 67 Border Street, to February 21st at 6:46.
Second?
all in favor? 6:46.
Spicing it up here.
We're just killing it tonight. McKay, 20 and 22 Oceanfront Street, repair fence, add a fence, backfill, restore dune. And I see, is anybody here for that?
No, actually, that was Jeremy from CLE
Yeah.
from last meeting. And we were waiting for clarification from Natural Heritage on what they were looking for monitoring for
Yep.
the piping plovers, which we received. So I would say that you are good to close.
Was there any much,
The clarification was that the owners just need to provide access should it be requested.
okay,
No special plan required.
all right, so we can put that in the orders.
Yeah.
All right, so get,
So
take
we
a
need
motion to close.
Motion to close McKay, 20 and 22 Oceanfront Street.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome.
Kenny, where are you when I need you?
Freeman, 115 Glades Road, septic repair. On January 22nd, 2018, at 6:42 PM in Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission. Oh, you're so precise. There's the section 131, section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and section 3070 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of Hugh Freeman to repair a septic system on property located at 115 Glades Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Jeff Hassett with Morse Engineering. This is an NOI filing to install a septic tank at 115 Glades Road. The entire property and all of the surrounding properties are on a barrier beach, which is why we filed an NOI. Kind of a unique one in that currently they have a 5,000-gallon plastic septic tank sitting on their deck. It was installed as part of a septic repair in 1992. The owners have the property on the market, and that's deterred a couple potential buyers.
Yeah.
So they approached us and we looked into putting a new traditional tank in the ground. So it's a standard 1,500-gallon concrete tank. In areas like this, we do the bolt-down cast iron covers. It's not a velocity zone, it's just an AE zone. During construction, construction will be pretty limited. It's in an area that's currently sand and cobblestones. It'll probably take about a day to excavate the hole for the tank and backfill it. So I really don't see any sediment running off here. It's been reviewed by the Board of Health. We've addressed their comments. Their only outstanding one is approval from Conservation. And some of the other benefits of using the concrete tank is that it'll be a 1,500-gallon tank as opposed to a 500-gallon tank. It'll have a filter instead of just an outlet tee. And the biggest one, in my opinion, is that right now, the sewage from this house flows down to the first floor and then it's pumped up into that tank. So that's an issue anytime there's a power outage.
Sure.
It's getting to flow by gravity without the mechanical component.
Jeff, should that tank maybe have, not a turn here, but I just
Fine.
looking at the plan, should that have the spreader at the bottom of that to keep that from coming up if that flooded. And a lot of the tanks have like an extension around their base.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if that tank should have that to keep that tank from, I mean, most of the time it should be full, but if it were pumped or was partially full and that area flooded out, it would keep that from.
Floating.
Yeah, so we usually do a foot for groundwater, from the groundwater pressure, pushing it up.
Right.
In this case, the bottom of the tank is above the water table.
Right.
The only time you'd really have, could be an issue would be during flooding, you might have water flowing across the
I
surface.
think that happens there?
I think the water goes around, I think it more goes this way.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're a couple feet higher where the tank's going in as opposed to over here. So the water does kind of channel around that area. And during those times, the tank's going to be full.
Right.
So I don't, it's not a big deal to add it, but I don't really think it's necessary.
Okay. I just know in places along the water, we've looked to have that be part of that, just to make sure it remains, do as much as possible. I mean, I'm really, there's plenty of other things that are gonna disappear before that tank does, if there's a bad storm there.
Yeah. If you wanted to condition that, I think I'd be fine with that. It doesn't add a lot of cost.
I don't know, I'm just, that's the only thing I
think
happen to
it's
notice.
a point of safety at that point.
Yeah.
I know that area's gonna have overwash at different times. And scouring, any other issues, you think this is gonna be okay there? I mean, that's the whole purpose of putting the plastic one there and up on the piles, was to try to keep as much of the system out of harm's way.
Yep. What was interesting is that in 1992, FEMA called this a velocity zone, and I
Yeah.
think that was part of the motivation to get it up. They've actually downgraded that to just do an A zone.
Okay.
So you don't have the wave action, just moving water.
Do you know what the elevation is in that area?
I do.
A what?
15.
And what's the
And
grade there?
ground under the house is 12.
Okay. So there could be potentially 3 feet of water.
Yeah, potentially,
Okay.
for FEMA. But I think it's a good location for it, because it's kind of tucked behind the house, and it's in an area where the natural ground is elevated a little bit.
Yeah, the back doesn't, I mean, the water doesn't, they're set pretty far back from the marsh, so it's not as though, but it is pretty level with the marsh.
Right.
So in the same regard, that part of the glades does get more water in the back.
Right.
I like your idea, Frank. I think it should be part of the conditions.
Yeah.
It's not a big
No,
expense or.
No.
Just the other problem is that they have to dig a little bigger hole,
I know.
which is not always easy in that material.
Nope. But I still think it's a good idea.
I mean, it's all cobble, which is tough.
It is tough.
You're digging a good-sized hole to get the thing in to start with.
We'll have to be careful next to the shed. I think they're okay up to the property lines into the house itself.
Right.
But they'll be able to do it.
Okay. Lisa?
I have nothing.
So, special condition is for tie down? It's
It's
not
not a tie down, what do we
And
call
the
it?
extended base.
Extended base.
Yeah, the base is 1 foot bigger in each direction than the tank itself. And the weight of the soil can take down the pressure, holding the tank down
Okay,
a little
so
bit more.
can you revise the plan to show that? So that way Board of Health has the correct info too?
Okay.
So we'll just do condition.
Good to close?
Yep,
Make a motion to close?
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Young, 18 Lowell Street. Actually revised NOI submitted,
Raise and rebuild. We're gonna raise and rebuild this,
so,
Lowell Street?
yeah.
so they want to come back on the 5th?
Have to re-advertise it.
Okay.
So we're gonna, it's been opened?
It has been open.
So we're gonna continue this, I make a motion to continue Young 18 Lowell Street to February 5th at 6:30 PM.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And then Healy Investment Trust, 119 Jericho Road, raise and rebuild, and they've requested continuance to the next available meeting.
Next available would be the 5th, and actually, it's later than the 21st. So I'll make a motion to continue for Healy Investment Trust, 119 Jericho Road, to February 5th at 6:35 PM.
Second.
All in
Oops,
favor?
sorry.
You're good. Okay. What do we have else on the agenda? Any correspondence, agents report,
We have a whole host of correspondence.
anything that comes, I mean, I looked at it, there wasn't anything I really,
Jumps out at you.
yeah, anything you feel is pressing?
He's gonna really be mad.
Not really, I don't think.
We have a meeting date change in our calendar.
In April, yes.
To what?
We had a Wednesday because of the town meeting, is that right?
Yeah.
So the old date was,
I don't know. Oh, I can look it up though, I forgot. I've got my calendar with me.
In what month?
April.
April 9th?
So we had 9th and the 23rd.
okay.
So now it's 11th and
So now
23rd.
it's April 11th instead of April 9th.
Okay.
Maybe we should just cancel that meeting. Well, so, because a Wednesday meeting after town meeting, will town meeting even be done in 2 nights? I mean, I don't
Monday,
know.
wouldn't they go Monday, Tuesday, and then we'd be
Think so.
Wednesday? If it happened?
So if they go Wednesday, then it's going to be a conflict with our meeting date.
If they went to a third night.
If they went to, does that ever happen?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think
Okay,
so.
good.
I don't think there's anything that big.
You just jinxed us.
We just stayed till 1 in the morning.
I've heard that happens.
Those new chairs, everybody will be sleeping if they hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already had it.
Here's-
And then it keeps me awake, is the hard seats. There's no way to know it off. Yeah.
Here's what I wanted to bring up was the dog park.
Yeah.
So that is, I don't know, I had a tentative meeting last week with VHB, who's been hired by the DPW, or not DPW, I don't think that's correct, by the trust who's trying to get that project going.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, and so I saw the proposed plan and its proximity to the buffer area and the resource area, so they are gonna be coming forward with a notice of intent. And, so anyways, we're actually gonna move forward with, stormwater review because it's gonna trigger stormwater standards, so I think that they're looking to file that pretty quickly, and hopefully we'll have in hand the peer review for the stormwater. There's a couple of other things that may need to be tweaked, and one of those is there's a connection trail.
Where
from
was
the-
this?
Right next to the windmill,
Oh, okay.
Driftway. There's a little parcel, and that's where they're gonna situate this dog park. But so they wanna add a trail to connect the dog park to other trails that go on that other Driftway open space parcel.
Right.
And I didn't know if you had just initial thoughts
So we
on
were,
that.
yeah,
I think you guys were consulted before they,
I think we were positive, you and I had a chance to look at that. And I think we were positive about this park, that it would allow people, to it's gonna get fenced in. And they had originally requested that they be situated more towards the Driftway Park and the parking area at the Driftway. And we didn't think it was appropriate to give up that grassy area right there, because people use that for recreation, and there's already some picnic tables and stuff on the other side. So we encouraged them to move further towards the harbor on the Driftway. And it was that spot that years ago the DPW used as a kind of a nursery for some plants and things, but they haven't used in a long time. So, and they don't have any real strong feeling about it. But what I didn't realize when you and I looked at that was sort of how this all orientates with the windmill and what's going on with the mulching and all that
Right.
sort of thing. So I think it's important that we know where this is, are they gonna come back with a survey to show just where that's gonna get placed?
Yes, that'll be in the NOI plan set.
Because it looks to me like to build that for the size that they want, or this is actually gonna wind up more in sort of the dunny, natural occurring area off the driftway. Not that I'm opposed to it, but I think it's a little bit different resource than the area that was cleared for this nursery area. So that in my mind, I envisioned it more that area that the DPW had cleared and mowed and whatnot. And now I think in order to fit in there, it's gonna wind up being more towards, actually where those Christmas trees are and
Right.
it's gonna move towards that a little bit. I don't think it's gonna be in that area exactly, but it's moving. It's kind of a funny area, like this was dug out years ago. Boston Sand and Gravel had a big operation there, and they cleared a lot of this, removed a lot of overburden, and then taken all the sand out, and then sort of left this uneven area that's revegetated and a lot of scrub pine, and it's not a habitat that you see much in Scituate. It's a little bit different. So I think it's just something we need to be aware of. You know, try to get them towards the turbine as much as possible and out of that area as much as we can. Maybe we should be meeting with them a little bit and take a look and see where exactly this piece is gonna go. You know, if there's a group that's doing that, that we might take a look at what they have for a survey and actually look at the site and determine, you know, just where this is gonna be. I'm not discouraging it, I think it's a good idea. I think it, hopefully in the long run, will keep,
Keep the trails better,
yeah,
because people just
right.
everywhere.
Yeah.
But then the question of being able to leave that area, say in the back, and get into the trail system after you've exercised the dog, I don't know, I mean, I think a lot of the people that are using, the trails are dog walkers, and it's become a big part of our trail use. Certainly a lot of residents in the town of Scituate want to use the trails and whatnot, and we need to be respectful of that. You know, at the same time, hoping that they're gonna be respectful of the trails, because it's a problem.
Yeah, I was there yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, and it was super muddy, but also plenty of bags left behind.
And that's really frustrating, I mean, people,
Yeah, they bag it, but then they whip the bag
Yeah.
into the woods. Yeah, that's nice.
just
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Right.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
That's a double.
And that, the muddy areas that you talked about are ones that I took some pictures of, so by springtime, that's something that we wanna get on top of. These 2 or 3 places, when you leave the Driftway Park and head into that trail system, you can't help but walk through a couple of
Yeah.
muddy areas that just have filled in. They need to be, you need to get some stone in there and some hard pack and,
Well, so
but,
when the notice of intent comes in, these types of things, we might be able to get small improvements since they're gonna be going to construction in that area.
right.
Anyways, although I know that fund-wise,
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be anything costly, you know what I mean, but.
I think we can find a way to fix these small, I mean, these aren't big places. A few yards of material
Yeah,
placed in these spots would correct that problem. It's just some little settling areas and then stuff's built up on the edges so they don't drain. It wouldn't be hard to correct these. It's just something we should be doing. You know, we've got folks out in the woods getting logs out of the trails and
right.
brush and doing all that, but the Driftway Park isn't getting that attention. It gets cleaned up by the, by some of the kids from the high school, but it needs some other maintenance. And the same thing, we talked about the dock and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
But we should fix, we could maybe work with DPW, if they had a small loader and we could buy,
Chips.
you know, some small amount of material, we could fix that. But back to your thoughts on I think it's probably a discussion that we should have with this group and kind of determine how they're gonna police it and how we can be assured that we're gonna, see better use of the trails and things like that, because I think it all needs to work together.
Well, I think if you don't create a trail, people are gonna make their own.
Right.
So you might want to pick the, path that you want them to use.
One of the things that came up, I had gotten an email from one of our trail maintenance folks about the Ellis property having the same issue. And I emailed our animal control officer asking maybe she could speak to the folks at the animal shelter, because a lot of the Ellis property trails are used by folks walking dogs from the animal shelter, because they can cut through,
Right.
there's a trail that takes them right into there. And she pointed out to me that it's not just folks from the animal shelter, plenty of people use Ellis as well, and they park on Country Way. And what we need to do is get out there with some signs. In order for her to properly enforce it, we need to have some signage in those locations. And I think Penny told me there's some signs in the
She did.
office, and
There are.
I don't mind popping those up in a couple of places. I think we need to put them at a couple of our parking. We have plenty of signage at the Driftway Park itself. When people park at the Driftway, Lord knows there's plenty of things to remind people to clean up. They're not, sadly, not everybody's doing it. I don't know, maybe because Paul's not here tonight, we should just see if he'd like to sit there some afternoon on a Sunday.
Police.
Remind people. Anybody want to vote that?
Well, I do.
Absolutely, I just don't think he'd pay attention.
Yeah. We can't fault Penny, she's at another meeting tonight. I think, Amy, why don't you, if you get contact, who's kind of spearheading that? Is it the animal control officer, or is it somebody else?
The dog park?
Yeah. Is it Kim?
Spearheading it is Sean McCarthy from DPW.
Or maybe we should be getting with
It was
that.
a Laura Harbottle project, from what
Yeah.
I understand,
Okay.
and now it's shifted to him.
But let's see if there's some folks outside of the town that we could get with and talk about that. And maybe Sean, we could talk to Sean too. Because I would like to really determine where that's gonna be.
Mhm.
So maybe-
Well, one of the complicating factors right now is the lease with Go Green, that area, which is where people dump. And I think they also have their own operation going in there, as part of their lease. But it looks like it's extended into this area, the dog park.
Right.
So that's one of the things this week. We're gonna go out there and hopefully meet with the operator and see if they can't take back what they've dumped.
It's been expanded since it
Right,
first
it's been
started.
expanded, and
Yeah.
so we're just gonna evaluate if in fact what we see on the aerials is what it is on the ground.
Okay.
You need to walk it. If you're
Yeah.
around, you can come with us.
I wouldn't mind, if you know when you're going, let me know, because I'm just not sure where our care and custody
Right,
starts and stops. There's a piece of that that's DPW, and then the sewage treatment plant and the area, that yard area where they're handling yard waste and stuff like that. But somewhere in there's a line, and then conservation has care and custody of property moving back west or heading back down towards Widows Walk. And so we gotta figure out where that line is, even if it's roughly where it is.
right, tentatively Wednesday afternoon or Thursday. So I'll let you know, Frank.
If
Okay.
it's Thursday, I'll come. too.
Okay, great,
If it's Wednesday, I can't, but Thursday I could.
okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I need to make a motion to accept the minutes of January 8th, 2018, with congratulations to our fearless leader over there for getting them done so fast.
We're
Carol,
really in
you're the bomb.
compliance.
We need a
You
second.
want to second that?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Carol. Anything else? We could end this meeting at 7:30 and tell some of the other members that.
It went so late.
Yeah.
Except they'll watch the YouTube.
Except they'll
video.
watch
Right.
and see. I make a motion to close.
think
Second.
less people
Adjourn.
less people to debate the issues moves it along a little quicker.
Yep.